All right, ladies and gentlemen, making the follow-up video to the one that I just did about my predictions for blah, 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 blah. A guy had made a really, really good comment about Warlock. So basically, I made a video where I was bitching about unstable affliction, why it's now currently on an SL Warlocks, which is a thing that's never actually been able to have in the entire game. So, for example, I think Unstable Affliction came out in TBC. You could not be a Soul Link Warlock and have Unstable Affliction because it's like your level 51 talent point. In TBC, my bad, in Wrath of the Lich King, you still could not get Unstable Affliction and be a Soul Link Warlock at the same time. But then somebody in Season of Discovery decided that it would be a really good idea to give Warlocks Unstable Affliction. So now we have Soul Link Warlocks running around with Unstable Affliction. And I'm like, what the fudge? So, why is this bad? Well, Unstable Affliction is basically a dot you can put on people. You have to hard cast it, but it's really easy to get off. Even he says it's a 1.5 second cast. But basically, it's a dot that if it gets dispelled off of you, it does shit tons of damage. It does double damage if it crits, and it silences the target. So it basically stops people from cleansing off all their dots. So hopefully you can understand why it would be like the level 51 talent in the talent tree. Let me make sure I'm not being... The dogs are just playing. Okay, they're being stupid and playing. Oh, it's a thunderstorm outside. They like to bark at the thunder. So if I make a sound of thunder, just listen to this really fast. What's going on? Yeah, thunder, huh? Yeah, go get it. Go beat it up. Jeez. Anyways. Yeah, so you can see why this would be the level 51 talent point in a Affliction Warlock tree, right? Because they're all supposed to be all about their dots, and people could cleanse their dots off, and that's really annoying for an Affliction Warlock. That makes it non-viable in PvP, and so they gave them Unstable Affliction, right? Wham bam, thank you ma'am. Soul Link Warlock is like the level 41 talent in the Demonology tree, like, causes 50% of the damage you take as a Warlock to be redirected to the pet. Which means you have a 30% damage reduction, which makes you like the hardest thing to kill in the entire game. And they're often banned in dueling tournaments because Soul Link Warlocks are all nigh unbeatable. You have to be basically one of the best paladins in the world to beat them. Not because it's a skill check for a paladin to beat a warlock, just because it's an intelligence check to beat a paladin as a warlock, which most paladins fail, apparently. So now we have one of the hardest things to kill in the entire game that now you can't cleanse the dots off of him. And so now they can put 5 dots on you. They can put Curse of Agony. They can put Drain Life on you, Improve Channeler, Drain Life. They can Haunt you. They can put Corruption on you, and then they can put Unstable Affliction. So they can have 5 dots on you. 2 of those are healing them. This unkillable thing is now healing. Like, what the balls? I've never seen them heal before. That's kind of messed up. And oh, by the way, if you try to cleanse off this stuff, good luck. You might take like an ocean of damage. Okay, cool. Now let's read what this guy had. Basically, I was saying, please, for the love of God, make Unstable Affliction opportunity costed against Drain Life. Because that would be at least make them have to pick between the two. And that's the only thing I disagree on. But let me read the comment really fast. All right, so he says, in Phase 2, the S-Priest Warlock matchup was heavily Priest favored because it could clear out the Drain Life effect very easily, right? The Priest can just dispel it off you. Paladins couldn't, of course, right? During Phase 2. We weren't level 42, which is when we get Cleanse. Unstable Affliction was added precisely to punish people who spam Dispel and has a 1.5 second cast time to avoid any confusion. Okay, cool. I didn't know that. I thought it was like a 2 second cast time. So moving it to the same rune slot as Master Channeler would make it useless. No one would ever use Unstable Affliction over Master Channeler. That was the only thing I disagreed with him on. Because if you run up against a class that can dispel, they're just going to dispel all of your dots off. They're just going to dispel everything, right? And so the difference between if it's opportunity costed with Master Channeler, what this means is that against some classes you would prefer to have Master Channeler. But against other classes, you'd prefer to have Unstable Affliction. Those classes that you'd prefer to have Unstable Affliction against are Hunter. The odds of you being able to get within range of a Hunter to put Unstable Affliction on them are poor, but you could catch them in a grenade stun, or you could catch them in this stun, or you could use some movement speed effects, and you could theoretically get an Unstable Affliction on them. If you tried to get a Master Channeler on them, they would just run away fast enough to break the channel. Not going to work too terribly well. The same thing happens with Druids. You'd prefer Unstable Affliction over Master Channeler because the Druid's just never going to get close enough to you to let you put Channel on them. And if you do get close enough to you can put a Channel on them, they're just going to outrange it and dispel it that way effectively. Versus anything that can dispel, so Priest and Warlock, you'd prefer to have Unstable Affliction over Master Channeler. It's only really against rogues and warriors, and I'm trying to think who else comes to mind. Mages can even outrange it, so you'd prefer Unstable Affliction. You wouldn't be, you'd prefer Unstable Affliction, to be perfectly honest. It's just another dot in your toolkit. Rogues might even eventually get the ability where they can, like, vanish and their, like, buffs disappear, or all the debuffs on them basically get dispelled, and then possibly you might want Unstable Affliction against them as well. So I disagree with that assessment, but everything else he's about to say I agree with 100% and more. So let's see here. Furthermore, Drain Life has a very high mana cost as well as a 20-second cooldown, so dispelling it is still bad for the Warlock even if UA goes off. The problem there, of course, is that Unstable Affliction does ×2 damage on the crit, and it will silence you for 1,000,000 years. We'll talk about that in a second. He's correct about that, though. The opportunity cost is also there, as Felguard is a very popular pet in PvP. Soul Link Warlocks don't really work. So, for example, every time I fight as a Paladin, every time I fight a Warlock who has a Fel Hunter, I just eat them alive. Because they have no Unstable Affliction. So I literally just kill the Fel Hunter, dispel all the dots off me. They resummon a Fel Hunter because they're SL Warlock. I kill the Fel Hunter, or Fel Hunter. I keep saying Fel Hunter. Is that Fel Hunter? Felguard. I kill the Felguard again, and then they just kind of stand there and die like a bitch. Maybe. The problem here is this, right? And I talked about this a little bit before. I don't know how Felguard mechanics work, but I talked about how Warlock pets don't really scale with anything. So they do a bit with demonology, but nowhere near enough, especially in Season of Discovery. I know they don't scale enough in Era, and so I'm willing to say they're not going to scale enough in Season of Discovery at all. What do I mean by this? Well, I mean that in Nax geared PvP in Era, you kill Warlock pets with a vengeance. Why is this? Because they're running around with somewhere between 2,000 to 3,000 HP, give or take, and they very rarely have any real armor, so you can just look at them sideways and they explode. Succubuses are notoriously bad. They've got like 2,000 HP and no armor. So a warrior will jump on a Warlock and then literally just kill the Succubus instantaneously. So they just delete the pet out of existence. Same thing happens with Fel Hunters. They get kind of hacked up pretty badly. They can at least heal themselves through Devour Magic, but that still only gives them about 3,000, maybe 3,500 effective HP. I don't think that's going to be enough in Season of Discovery when we're fully geared. Felguards are already getting absolutely hacked to pieces if they get targeted, partly because when they get summoned, they have like 50% of their life, which is weird. I don't know what that's about, but yeah, they just get cut to pieces. So it might be in the future that in Season of Discovery, the Warlock pets just start getting absolutely murdered, like murderized, and that might be one of the counters to SL Warlock. All right, so moving on. Historically, Warlock's peak power is level 45. They get Soul Link and improved corruption. Okay, so naturally, this phase will favor Warlocks a lot more than previous phases, which I agree completely. Future phases will also have shadow resist gear, which currently doesn't exist. Paladins are missing all their natural predator. Paladin is missing all kinds of things from their toolkit until they get level 60. And their pets don't scale anywhere near as much, which we talked about. Lastly, Warlocks can't heal or buff others, which is true. They can't chase and are highly immobile, which is also true. The best way to fight any Warlock is to run away in a straight line if you cannot beat them. The other a really bad thing about them that we already talked about is, I don't think he mentions this, is that a sizable portion of the Warlock's toolkit is 20-yard range or less. Their fears are 20-yard range hard casts. So like, Jesus. So they might as well be melee range. Their drain life, I also think, is 20 yards. And if you break the 20-yard range, I think it goes away. That's instant cast, though. So, definitive 20 yards. They have... let me think about that. I think that's it. But a sizable and critical component to their toolkit is short ranged, right? And then all the other spells are 30 range, and a lot of classes are running around like picking on them past the 30 range mark. Did I finally kill that stupid fly? I think I did. Right, so hunters can be really annoying for warlocks because they sit at like the 40-yard range and pelt them. Druids can be really annoying for warlocks. They sit at a super long range and they pelt them. Almost nothing. They struggle to kill things if it runs away from them in a straight line, especially if said thing can cleanse itself. Warriors can often run in a straight line a hell of a lot faster than normal because they can charge this, intercept to that, heroic interception or whatever the heck. They just move faster than normal. Worst case scenario, you just throw a grenade back at the warlock and you run away in a straight line. And it's like, oh no, will the dots kill me? Probably not. And you just keep running. So that is true. Super mobility issues. They also have ranging issues. They are mediocre in group combat. This is true. Getting outdamaged by all other range classes unless you go destruction, which no one ever complains about in PvP, as they suck. No one ever complains about it. Okay, interesting. The main reason in my assessment that they're not so good in PvP, and this is another example of it possibly being a horde perspective. There's a few examples of things being horde perspective here. The first one was that he mentioned priests cleansing or dispelling, but that was specifically phase 2. But I noticed he didn't mention the priest will fear, if the priest is close enough to get a drain life on him, he's also close enough to fear the warlock. And if the warlock gets feared, you can use fear. Priest fear can break drain life. That's what I'm trying to say. Except if you're, undead and you have Will of the Forsaken, that's never going to happen, right? PvP, Trinket, Will of the Forsaken, that's never going to happen. So that's just not a thing. That's a thing Alliance side, but it's not a thing Horde side. Here we have another example of them being useless in PvP. So on Horde side, cleansing is relatively rare, right? Horde has lots of purges. They don't have a lot of cleansing. Whereas Alliance has an absolute ocean of cleansing because, you got 5 paladins on the team. Good luck dotting up that team as a warlock. You're going to get all kinds of things that get cleansed off. The thing that really makes them suck in PvP, in my assessment, is that the Drain Life ability has a massive visual indicator that just screams, the Master Channeler ability specifically, has a visual indicator that just screams, please cleanse this target to stop the healing to stop this character healing from it, right? It says cleanse target now. And so the fastest way to kill a warlock is to figure out what the hell he's casted drain life on and start cleansing the hell out of it, which incidentally probably has a bunch of other dots that you can cleanse out of it. And then while your buttons and your brain and your mentality and your eyes have shifted towards cleansing, you might as well cleanse this and cleanse that and cleanse this while you're at it. So yeah, I don't think they're anywhere near as good in PvP as you would think. Especially since they gave elemental shamans the ability to flame shock one target and it hits 5 targets. Yeah, great, thanks. Awesome. So in Alterac Valley, if I so much as go anywhere near the Horde, I'm just going to magically have 5 flame shocks on me for no good, or not 5, like 10 flame shocks on me for no reason. And if I even try to cleanse that crap off me, I'm just going to permanently have 10 flame shocks on me, whether I like it or not. Great. So Warlock only brings Curse of Tongues in group PvP, which Paladins absolutely fucking despise. Holy balls. Fuck you. Hence why no one wants Warlocks in their STV group. Okay, interesting. Yeah, they take too long to kill. Well, STV is more... it's not a very good example, because STV is about last hitting more than anything. And Warlocks are absolute garbage at last hitting, right? They're like, even if they could dot the entire world, right? Like they just walk into AV and everything within 40-yard range gets like 5 dots on them instantly. They would still be terrible in Stranglethorn Vale because they can't last hit kill anything. So all the warriors are going to vacuum up all that, all those kills. The only things Warlocks are good at is PvP, is 1v1s, the king of solo gameplay. Why don't you let them have that? Okay, legitimate. The rest of the stuff you talked about in your video, I agree with. Yeah, okay. Kings of 1v1s. Right, so I made that previous video so I could make this video. I talked about in the previous video how the changes in the PvP damage reduction. So Blizzard's supposed to be putting in a 30% spell damage reduction, a 30% healing damage reduction, and a 20% physical damage reduction. And after examining what that's going to change, it's going to make Mana Wars come back with a vengeance. Because you're going to be basically a 30% damage reduction is a 44% effective increase in HP. But it's also a 44% increase in how long it's going to take to kill somebody, and then how much mana it's going to take to kill somebody. And I talked about how, well, in more realistic terms, it's not going to be a 44% increase in how long it takes to kill people in combat, time to kill, TTK. It's going to be more like an 80% increase in duration to kill people. And then gearing's going to change to make it even worse. And very quickly, you're going to find metas where people just can't kill each other because they just don't have the mana to kill each other anymore. And then that brings us to a topic of conversation such as resistances. So you can see here in this example, at 10 seconds to kill each other under current PvP circumstances, it might cost them 50% of their mana bar to dig through 10,000 effective HP at level 60. But later on down the line, even at 44% or a measly 50% increase in the time, it's going to take them 75% of their mana bar to kill the same target. So it'll take them 50% longer, but also cost them 50% more mana to do it. And again, after talking about front load, people gearing differently, people taking different runes, resistances coming into play, it's not going to be 15 seconds to kill anybody anymore. It's going to be more like 20, 30 seconds to kill people. And by that point, people just aren't going to have enough mana to get the job done. It's also important to note that 30% damage reduction combined with another 30% damage reduction is basically a 50% damage reduction. It's actually 49. So if I take 100 and I multiply it by 0.7, which is a 30% damage reduction, and I take it again by another 0.7, which is another 30% damage reduction, you can see we're at 49. So 30% DR stacked with another 30% DR is a 51% damage reduction. How much resistance do you need against spells to get to that, 50% damage reduction mark? The answer is 120. At level 60. Every 40 resist at level 60 is basically a 10% damage reduction. So if we divide this by 40, obviously we're going to get, 3. So we're going to get a 30% damage reduction right there. All right, so you only need to hit 120 shadow resist, 120 fire resist, 120 nature resist. Nature resist is really hard to get, though. Before the amount of mana that you're asking the enemy player to need in order to kill you probably becomes like insanely untenable. And even if you start talking about, well, Warlocks have Curse of Elements, so they can reduce that by 75. Eventually there's Magic Pen gear that gets put into the game, so 75 plus like 60 Magic Pen you can pick up. Nobody really uses 60 Magic Pen, but let's just say they have 60 Magic Pen. So you could run into a Warlock that's running around with minus 135 shadow to your shadow resist. Okay, cool. Okay, but as a paladin, you can get well and truly over 300 shadow resist without breaking a sweat. You can get over 300 fire resist without breaking a sweat. Not that, and most people don't have Curse of Elements. So, for example, I might be running around with 240 fire resist, and they might be reducing that by 60, and I still have 180 fire resist, and I divide that by 40 to figure out, times that by 10. Oh, look, I still have a 45% fire damage reduction on top of a 30% fire damage reduction. Like, what is that? Times 0.7 times what? Yeah, no, that's fine. 70 times 0.45, so that would be 55? Yeah. So I'm only taking, what is that? Almost a 62% damage reduction? That's insane. That means it's going to take them 3 times more mana to kill me than it used to, like 150% of a mana bar. So my point is that Shadow Resist might do a lot against Warlocks. Shadow Resist also sometimes in some version of the games it double dips against Unstable Affliction. So, for example, if you fully resist the Unstable Affliction damage, there's no silence that goes off. Sometimes you'll take damage from the Unstable Affliction, but you won't be silenced by the Unstable Affliction because it does a double resist check. First, it acts like grenades, basically, where grenades first check to see if you resisted all the damage. If you resisted all the damage, then you don't get stunned. Then if you do get, if you take damage from the grenade, it does a resist check anyways. I've tested it in Classic World of Warcraft. It doesn't seem to work either of those ways. The way grenades work in Classic WoW is they're binary. They're all or nothing. So if I have a 50% damage reduction and I go and I chuck grenades, me and a friend tested it. We chuck grenades each other with 200 fire resist. We resisted 50% of the grenades, meaning 50% of the grenades did not do damage and did not stun us, and 45% of the grenades did do damage and did stun us. And there wasn't anything in between. So the grenade either did full damage or it did no damage at all. It either stunned us or it did not. And the reason why it was 55% is because of your base human stun resistance of 5%, which is interesting. So basically it went 50% plus the base stun resistance of 5%. Voila, 55% chance to reduce. Not entirely sure how Unstable Affliction will work, but what I can be fairly certain about Unstable Affliction is that she will not like Shadow Resistance one bit. Warlocks will not appreciate Shadow Resist on a Paladin whatsoever. Even if they try to get around it using Curse of Elements, they're really not going to like it. So you might be able to Mana War them to death, but it'll be very interesting to see which of the two metas is better. Like, do I try to annihilate the pet and get around the SL Warlock shenanigans that way, using Bubble to fully cleanse the dot and just continue to DPS? Meaning you don't bubble and heal, you bubble and keep DPSing. So you kill the pet, and in the time it takes you to kill the pet, the Warlock has fully dotted you up. You got 5 damn dots on you. You bubble all that crap away. You use the entirety of Bubble to keep beating the shit out of them. Bubble falls off. You activate, Mithril Insignia, and you just keep tunnel visioning damage into them now that they don't have their pet anymore. Now, the Warlock will summon another pet, but congratulations, that pet's going to last about a grand total of about 2 seconds. The other thing that Warlocks are really weak against, SL Warlocks in particular are really weak against when you're trying to kill the pet specifically, is any kind of area effect damage. So Divine Storm does terrible things to SL Warlock pets. Sapper Charges do terrible things to Warlock pets. Even Thorium Grenades are perfectly fine against pets because, 30% of the damage done to the Warlock gets transferred to the pet. Consecration does really good as well. The Big One Bomb, a little bit hard to pull off, but is also there. But yeah, as a Paladin, you can it'll be interesting to see, do I go high on the damage, low on the resist, and all in on just murdering pets and then killing myself a Warlock? Or do I go heavy on the resistances and play a Mana War game with them, realizing that they have to life tap in order to they have to damage themselves in order to regenerate mana? Or do you do a combination of the two, right? Is it I jump all over them and I kill me a couple of pets and then I stun them for 6 seconds and I run away in a straight line and get into a resist suit? Is that how I do it? Or do I open with a resist suit and I wear on them with the resistances and the mana bar until their mana bar is depleted and they have to like start hurting themselves in life? And then do I go all in on a DPS suit? Because again, there's that lack of mobility. If the Warlock doesn't have a pet, there's really nothing stopping you as the Paladin from stunning them and then running away in a straight line and getting a full reset. What's worse is that you can do a skeleton pet summon from the book to keep them in combat while you run away in a straight line and drop combat yourself, switch gear, heal up to full, and then get right back in on sending your Warlock. So you're going to have a lot more options in the future at level 60, but right now when the pets are so hard to kill, and Shadow Resist gear does not exist in the game. Warlocks are tough to deal with. I don't even know if maybe full rep Paladins don't have a problem dealing with Warlocks, but I would doubt it because Fell Hunters, man, they don't die. They just don't die. I don't know what to tell you. Yep. Anyways, I'll end the video here and Day Assault boys. But this was a really good comment, so I had to talk a lot about this. I don't know how the matchup's going to work. I would be very curious to try to find out what actually beats SL Warlock right now. Is it nothing? Is it still the case that nothing can beat SL Warlock? Only a properly played and geared Paladin can even remotely challenge them. I do like the fact that they still can't catch people, so that's nice. So in duels, I mean, you brought this on yourself. You challenged them to a duel. In open world PvP, you can't win the fight, but there's also no reason for you to be dying to a Warlock either, right? It's like, oh no, a Warlock is dotting me up. Whatever do I do? The answer is you run away in a straight line and you throw a grenade at him and you keep running away in straight line. GG's. Anyways, so I'll end this video here and Day Assault boys.